these moments, these really tragic moments happen in Washington, D.C., and how politics ends up becoming a big part of it, unfortunately, and how it never can be cut and dry, it never can be treated equally. Of course, we know about this attack where, of course, 2 members of the National Guard from West Virginia were shot. There was a murder, essentially, that happened, a terrorist attack. Those are a lot of different ways that you could describe this. But that is not how it ended up being described during one of these hearings. And this was just yesterday. And this is from Bennie Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi. Again, this is speaking specifically about that terrorist attack that happened over Thanksgiving weekend. You remember it, obviously. It resulted in sadly, death of members of our National Guard. Again, a lot of different ways you could describe it. Of course, we describe it as a terrorist attack. You could describe it as murder. You could describe it as many different ways. But how did it get described sitting there in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill? Take a listen.
Madam Secretary, you and the gentleman from NCTC reference the unfortunate accident that occurred with the National Guardsman being killed.
You think that was an unfortunate accident?
I mean,
it was a terrorist attack.
Wait. Look, I'll get it straight. Then you can
He shot our National Guardsman in the head.
Look, Mr. Chairman, will you direct the witness to allow me to ask my question?
Tried to kind of correct it, still did not do quite a good job at correcting it, calling it an unfortunate accident. Something that was clearly not an accident. It was a premeditated terrorist attack on members of our National Guard. And you got to give it for Kristi Noem for responding very quickly, for listening that closely. In those moments, it can be a little hard in Washington, D.C. You've heard from all these different people. Then you hear finally from someone who says something like this. You have many people who are now double down saying that this is ridiculous. This is precisely the problem that happens in Washington, D.C. when the humanity is taken out of all of this and it becomes an unfortunate accident when we all know and we all saw what it was. Well,
his follow-up, because what it reveals is a lot about the mindset when they go into these hearings. It's not just the fact that he called it an unfortunate accident, what was an act of terror. It's that his entire point he's trying to make, that he's frustrated he can't get through, is he's trying to blame President Trump for what he would consider an unfortunate accident. He's trying to score political points with the base through this line of questioning. So his frustration there about wanting to be able to continue his line of questioning without being interrupted by the witness, who was rightfully outraged by the way he classified it, is because she wasn't letting him get to his point that, wait, this is Trump's fault, let's blame it on Trump, when in reality, everyone should want a safer United States where people who come in through the asylum program aren't committing acts of terror against the United States.
It was an unfortunate situation, but you blamed it solely on Joe Biden. I want you to know who approved the asylum application for this same person.
Mr. Thompson, this individual that came into the country.
No, I want to know who approved.
Congressman Thompson, I want you to understand when this individual came into the country, he came under evacuation of Afghanistan under Operation Allies Welcome, was thoroughly vetted by the Biden administration at that point in time, allowed into our country, and then was never followed up. I want to remind everybody in Congress.
Reclaim my time.
We follow the law. And every asylum is supposed to have a check-in every single year, and the Biden administration failed to do that.
So, Jordan, what the congressman is trying to do here is trying to say, because the application for asylum was ultimately approved, I believe, in February of this year under the Trump administration. All of the work before that happened under the Biden administration, and we know what a disaster the Operation Allies Welcome was when we saw plane loads of people that hadn't been vetted. So all the vetting is having to do once they are in the United States. But once again, he's trying to score political points by saying, no, Trump approved him, so therefore it is Trump's fault, and really missing the fact that what the Trump administration is trying to do is reform the asylum process because it had been so ignored and broken.
He's
based
also
off the laws on the
forgetting
book.
why we were in that situation. It was because of the disaster of the pullout in Afghanistan, to the point where we know that there are people who bought identities of interpreters and others to get to the United States. So they're not even the person they're supposed to be. We are supposed to protect those who, if we are going to leave the country the way we did, who assisted the U.S. military and their families because their lives are certainly in danger. But if they were working, let's say they were working with the CIA, and this is all turns out to be correct because it was pretty quick that came out, they definitely needed that check each year. Why? PTSD is number one. I mean, that's number one. Number two, pressure on your families back at home. The Taliban is now in control. They know who left the country, and they got to leave the country and be in the United States under the special program because they worked against the Taliban. All of those people have family members back home, and they could have been putting significant pressure on them saying, we will kill your family, we'll do this or that if you don't carry out an attack like this. That does not, again, justify the attack at all. It is a terror attack. But what I'm saying is they are flipping some of these asylees because of the disastrous, it seemed like they had no plan. We lost so many troops just at that one gate.
The Abbey Gate bombing, right?
The Abbey Gate bombing. And now we've lost a National Guards person because of the way they were so like, we're getting out of Afghanistan and we're not going to leave a real contingency in place. We're just going to leave, and here's the day we leave. And if you assisted us, try to get through. And we knew it would cause this problem. It was just kind of waiting to see. Fortunately, I think most Afghans who have come to the United States that way are happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
All of them, though, are potentially subject to that same kind of pressure, which is why checking in on them to make sure the Taliban isn't trying to convince them that they must carry out some kind of violent attack because they've got their family, their friends, and they're going to kill their parents if they don't do it. And now we've lost a young National Guardswoman from West Virginia, and thankfully, the other National Guardsman who was expected also not to necessarily survive is now on his feet.
That's right.
To recovery. He's not through it all. I mean, there's a lot of complications, but it just is, it's politicizing it, but it is also because the Democrats know that sending the National Guard into these cities has been effective, and many of their cities are on the list.
Here's another concern when you dig deeper in his statement that it was an unfortunate accident, and then when he corrected, he said it was an unfortunate situation. So still very bad in the way that he's framing this. But it reminds me of something that Congresswoman Omar said a few years back at a CARE fundraiser. And I think the problem now is that if we were to have another massive national tragedy, right, I don't know that the unity is there like it was after 9/11, that it wouldn't be politicized immediately by political enemies to make a political point, because this is, remember what Ilhan Omar said about 9/11 at a CARE fundraiser, Bite 7.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
So, Jordan, ignoring the fact that CARE was actually founded way before 9/11, the fact that Congresswoman Omar is watering down 9/11 by saying some people did something is the same mindset that Congressman Thompson, who is ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, he's in leadership, when he says an unfortunate accident. You're starting to see that this is the way that the left is thinking in Congress. It's not just fringe people.
Right. And you know what? Again, it's this idea that terrorism, Islamic terrorism, does not exist in the United States anymore. And so there's two issues. There's the war on crime that President Trump has declared to clean up the cities. They don't want the National Guard in the cities. Number two is this idea that there is no more problem with Islamic extremism. I mean, which is insane to say, but yet this is their position. You've also got, Ilhan Omar and the Somali community under intense scrutiny right now. If you look at her income, last year she reported about $200,000 net worth. This year, over $20 million net worth. So is she part of that fraud? I think that there's a lot going on at play here, and this is why I was in Washington, D.C. We're about to enter 2026, and what is that? That's the midterm election of the final 2 years of President Trump's presidency.